Hello, welcome back to the Pro Pilot Playbook podcast, where we bring you all the tips, the tricks, the hacks, the shortcuts to get through your flying career, get you into the right seat of one of those airliners in the fastest and cheapest means possible. I'm here with Mike Martin, and
Hi.
I'm Sean Ritchie, and we're gonna answer another question today.
Yeah. What do you got for us, Sean? Some of these questions are great.
Yeah. Actually, the last few have been really cool. If you have a question for us, you can always submit it you can email us podcast@propilotplaybook.com, and we'll answer it on the air, just like we're doing right now.
Yeah.
So this one's from Jeremy, and he's talking about picking a base. And let's see here. Hello again, gentlemen. Will you talk a little bit about commuting versus living at a base and how that works? I live just outside Denver. I have a family. We love our home, so we're not going to be moving. Does that mean I am doomed to commute until I have the seniority to fly out of DIA, which is Denver International Airport? Actually, DIA is kind of a slang for the old.
DEN,
It's now DEN.
Yeah.
But it used to be DIA. DIA closed, but everybody still calls it DIA.
Was that Stapleton? Was that Denver Stapleton or something?
Is that the new one? It's called Stapleton?
That was the old one.
The old one. I was going to say, the old one was Stapleton. Yeah. But everybody still calls it DIA. Even the pilots.
Yeah.
Our good buddy Mike, the other Mike, he calls it.
Oh,
DIA.
yeah, that's right.
And I questioned him about it one day, and he's like, "Oh no, everybody just calls it DIA." I'm like, "But it's DEN." Whatever. I guess I'm not a local, so I'm not hip to.
Yeah, right.
All right. So, am I doomed to fly out of DIA? Okay, let's see. If I choose an airline like Frontier, Southwest, United, am I safer? Thanks in advance, Jeremy. Okay. All right. So I guess we should give a little background to just what he's talking about.
Right.
Being based, we had an episode.
Living where you're based.
Right. And commuting, what that means. So at the airlines, we have, we actually just did an episode a couple episodes ago. We were talking about Spirit, and we were talking about Allegiant and how they do the home basing your home every night. But,
right.
Not everybody lives where you're based at an airline. Some guys commute in, so you can travel for free on the airlines. And then they have this every airline does this differently. But if you live within an hour or sometimes 2 hours of a airport that the airline services, you're allowed to commute into work.
Right.
For instance, I flew for an airline based in Atlanta, Georgia, but I live in Cincinnati. So I would commute from Cincinnati down to Atlanta on their airline for free.
Yep.
Okay. People do this all the time, all over the place. It's not that big of a deal. You just got to build it into your work schedule. Now, if you're trying to do out and backs, like one day trips, leaving in the morning and coming back that night and being home, it gets a little complicated. But if you're going out on a 4-day trip, it's not that big of a deal. At least I never thought it was.
Yeah, I mean, the way I hear it from guys that do it, it can add a day maybe on a 4-day trip. Either you got to come in the night before, or you can't leave until the next day, and then you'll have some expense occurred there where you need somewhere to stay when you're there. When you land and it's the middle of the night and you got to spend a night, or you come in the night before. So what a lot of guys do is it's what's called a crash pad, but it's basically a house where you rent a room that typically a pilot owns. It's an investor,
Sure.
And then you can rent a room for a couple $100 a month or something, with all your stuff's in there, and that's where you go when you show up there to save money. So if you live where you're based, that cuts out all of that. You just show up at Denver International and you go flying. Now, for that to occur, you have to be able to have the seniority to get the base that you want. So typically, the nice ones where most people want to live are the higher seniority people. It just depends on every situation,
Right. And at the airline, seniority is everything. I mean,
Right.
you can't underplay the seniority thing at all at the airline. I mean, everything is based on seniority.
Well,
What trips you every month you bid the trips you want, or the line. That's where the name
right.
airline comes from. So you bid your line for the next month. You put in, 3, 4, 5 different selects, and then based on where your seniority falls that month, you get one of your picks, or maybe you bid way too out of your league and they just throw you something. That's handled differently at
Right.
every airline. But what you're flying every month, to when you can become a captain, to where you live, where you're based, is
Right.
all seniority. And it doesn't matter whether you're the most stellar, superb human being, employee that company has ever had, or whether you're the worst employee short of murdering somebody they've ever seen in the cockpit. It doesn't matter. If your seniority number is such and that such and such seniority number is being upgraded to captain, you're going to get it. That's just the way it works. There's no
Right.
merit. There's no merit based anything at the airlines. It's all seniority.
I think another thing we should bring up is the reserve thing.
Sure.
So yeah, they have a reserve line, right, which is basically on call, and that's typically the new guys. And that's problematic if you don't live where your base is. Because say you're living in Denver, but you're based in LA, they're going to put you on reserve several days in a row. So you're going to have to fly to LA, stay somewhere, and maybe they call you, maybe they don't. Now, some guys that are senior play a game where they like reserve if it's where they're based and where they live, because they call you in order of seniority. So a lot of guys, say you are based in Denver, you've been there a while, they'll bid reserve because they never get called, and then they just sit around, they're on call, and they're
They know there's enough. Yeah, there's enough junior guys going to get called before they ever get called. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, there are those games you can play. There's several little games like that you can play.
Yes.
Once you get some seniority, especially if you're one of those senior FO guys, but that would be my only concern. That's the only little thing you got to look out for early on before you get the seniority to get off a reserve. Or airlines also have something in between reserve and holding a line, where you're kind of the filler guy, and they have different names for this. But basically, as these schedules, these 4-day trips, these 3-day trips, the out and back 1-day trips, these things all go on the calendar in different city pairs, and guys bid on them. Well, there's always these little loose ends in these lines where somebody's taking a vacation, or somebody's has something scheduled off or whatever. So they know that hole is coming. So there's guys that have a schedule. They're not technically reserved, sitting at the airport, ready to go, hot reserve, or you got to be within 2 hours of the airport reserve. There's different levels of reserve, but there's the fill-in guys where you have a schedule for the month, but it's erratic. 1 week you're flying 2 days, the next week you're flying 4 days, where typically when you bid a line, you fly that same schedule week after week for the month. So there's different variants of all that stuff, but where I got off on a tangent here as usual, but what I was trying to say is, in the very beginning, before you can hold enough seniority to have a schedule, that's where your problems, I would imagine, would come up with, any type of thing you're thinking with family or something like that.
Right.
You're going to have to be in that city you're based, more than likely within 2 hours of the airport. Or if you're brand new green right out of training, you'll have a scheduled time where you got to be sitting at the airport, where they need like a hot reserve type thing. Like you got to be at the aircraft within 30 minutes of getting a call.
Yeah.
And
so I think what Jeremy needs to do here, though, is he has to specifically research these things on the specific airlines based in Denver.
Sure. None of this is a mystery.
None of this is a mystery. You can find it all out online. So find out what, if it's Frontier, where their senior bases are, and then where their junior bases are. If Denver's a junior base, then that means you're probably going to get that, right out of the gate. And even though Denver's a beautiful city, they may have a ton of flights there. So that makes it a junior base. So research that, and then research their hiring and how quickly you're going to move through the seniority list. Because so even if you're going to be based in LA with this particular airline, if they're hiring like mad, it may only be for 4 months, and then you're going to be able to get the base that you want. So you're going to have to do individual research on the individual companies that you're interviewing with, and see what works for you, because that's a huge career choice move, and why people select certain airlines. Like if you live in Atlanta, you might want to work for American, you might want to work for Delta, but if you live in Dallas, it's probably better for you to work at American. So, it's all factors that play into your decision.
Right. That's that. And another thing I wanted to mention was, there is absolutely strategy in picking those things, those airlines that you want to fly for. But you have the luxury. I mean, you're in Denver. I mean, it's not like you're trying to decipher what you're going to do because you live in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I mean, you are in a great market.
You're already a winner.
I mean, exactly. I mean, look at the, I think Alaskan has, guys stationed in Denver, not stationed, but a base in Denver. You got United, you got Frontier, you have choices. I mean, Delta may even have you got majors that have a domicile there. And then you also have regionals that are domiciled up there. So you're in a great market. And
lots of corporate flying jobs in Denver too.
Oh God. Yeah. I mean, it's an economic mecca. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I really don't think that, I would get too worried about it. I don't know. That's just my perception. Like I don't. You're not going to have a problem finding an airline to fly for that. You can be domiciled in Denver.
I agree. What a great question, though.
Yeah, it is a great question. I would be more focused on just, let's see. Did you mention where you're at with your? And you said hello again. So I'm wondering. Yeah. Maybe we answered one of your questions already. We've been getting a lot of them. I don't recognize your name though. I don't know where you're at in your training, but I would be focused on just getting somewhere as fast as possible. Moving up that seniority line.
It sounds great.
But thank you for the question, Jeremy, and good luck with everything. And if you got any more, write back. Let us know how it turns out, where you end up. And if you have a question you'd like us to answer on the podcast here, you can email us at podcast@propilotplaybook.com, and we'll get to it on the air just like we did Jeremy's question. Thanks for tuning in, folks.
Thank you.